Want me to give you a countdown? I'll give a countdown to my lot. Good evening, everyone. For those who are watching us at home or in the office or somewhere, maybe even in the park, it's a lovely evening here in Hounslow House. We've got some great views, and we've just seen a red kite fly over the building, which caused a bit of excitement. So that's interesting. Things have changed during COVID. So welcome to this Cabinet meeting. All of the Cabinet are here. Thank you, colleagues. And we have officers in the room who you probably won't see or hear unless we need them or there's a problem with the IT. So you're most welcome. We've got a reasonably long agenda, which we'll try and get through as quickly and speedily as possible, while giving everyone time to have a discussion or debate and ask questions. So we'll kick off. So it's apologies for absence. We don't have any because everyone's here. Declarations of interest and any other communications from members. Anything, anyone? No? Thank you very much. Minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of April 2021, pages 3 to 5. So I'll take matters arising and any other business together. So page 3. You'll have to shout out because I feel like I'm watching tennis at the moment. Page 4 and page 5. Is everyone happy for me to sign that off? Yes? That's great. Okay. So we now move on to agenda item 3, and can I ask Councillor Khan to take that forward? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. And keeping with the tennis analogy, I guess that's over to me. So keeping the conversation a little bit light. So as I present this report and what I'm asking the Cabinet to agree to, I just wanted to say, first of all, the amount of work that's been going on in the background with this and the team that's been working tirelessly, I am extremely proud of, because this is one of our biggest policies that we've brought to Cabinet and for approval, and everybody who's been working on this, not just the team working in the background and myself, but also colleagues as well here who have been embracing it and taking it on and start implementing it and start talking the language. First of all, just want to say thank you from me for that, because this is a massive step forward. And in light of that, the recommendations that what I'm asking for us to agree today in the papers is point 1.1 and 1.2 and 1.3. I'll read them. So 1.1 is to endorse the way forward set out in this report for outlining the work on the One Hounslow programme and the financial modelling. And then 1.2 is the creation of an earmark reserve to be named One Hounslow Transformation Reserves, to be established by utilising 4.5 million from the general reserves. And then 1.3 is to delegate the authority to the Executive Director of Finance and Resources to approve the budget allocations from the One Hounslow Transformation Reserves to support the delivery of the One Hounslow projects of up to 0.5 million. And just that's what I'm asking you to agree. And just to give you some kind of background context to this. And again, because you guys have already been working within your own respective portfolios and actually starting to talk the language. And this is where we're talking about this large-scale transformation program that's changing the way that we are delivering the transformation and how we're going to work across Hounslow. And I've said this many times before, it's the 4 pillars which will help us deliver our outcomes with our levers, and the kind of major pillars which we can go in and discuss later if you wish, is all about the economy, the education and work, health and well-being, and places and community. And we've developed a portfolio of programs and projects under each one of these pillars, and that's where your involvement has been. And then the different types of projects for this transformation, recovery, the digital age, enabling the businesses and the improvements. And this kind of introduces a new program tackling the complex issues that we've all been working on. Again, is this green recovery, the community solutions, and the youth skills and employment, and this economic renewal. And I don't need to say more on that, because if we work together and we collaborate, we'll see this success. And also, not forgetting to mention our voluntary sectors, our faith groups, and ultimately our residents, right? That's what we're here for, is to serve and benefit our residents. And then to achieve this, we'll make this investment that I'm asking for today, so that we have the capacity for us to be able to deliver this both practically and also for our ambitions for our residents in the future. So, it's vital that we have this investment. So, colleagues, that's kind of where we are now. And I ask you then, if you're okay, to agree the following of 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. And I'm happy if you need to take any questions. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thanks, Hanif. So I'm happy to second the report and reserve my right to speak. Tom, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I did. Not a question, but a comment, a very positive comment on this. I mean, the recommendations themselves, while necessary, are perfunctory, but they don't do the rest of the report the justice I think it deserves, because as Hanif eloquently described exactly what's going on within this report, it is about supporting our residents. We can talk about pillars, we can talk about levers, we can talk about this money going here or that money going here, or the work that he and I and our cabinet colleagues are going to do. But ultimately, it is, what are our residents going to get from this? Is the delivery of service, is there experience of Hounslow services, Hounslow Council, what Hounslow has to offer, going to be as good as they want and as good as we want it to be? And this report, it doesn't say that we can do that, but it is about our ambition, it is about our aims and what we are trying to achieve in order to give that to our residents. And I think that's really important, because it brings all those elements together under that one Hounslow brand. I don't always like those sorts of terminology, but it is important I think to say that, and to be saying that, for us to be speaking the speak, that this is one Hounslow. Hanif, I think this is a great piece of work, and you and the officers that you've been working with have done an excellent job, and I certainly agree with the recommendations, but I fully endorse everything that's written within it as well.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Lily?
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to thank the lead member, Hanif, and all the officers for all the hard work that they've done in terms of getting this project off the ground. And I absolutely endorse the approach forward. I think it's really important for a borough like Hounslow. We're a unique borough, and we have some unique problems, particularly following COVID and some of the challenges that COVID itself has presented. So I think it's extremely important that we have a coordinated approach, and that departments across the council work together, so that the experience for the residents and outcomes of the residents are improved, because ultimately that's what we want. And further along tonight, there's a couple of reports that are actually a direct result of the One Hounslow programme and ambition, and that is the report that we'll see on looked after children and the report on community solutions. So it's a really good piece of work, and I'm really pleased to see all the projects that we are working on that will be coming out of our One Hounslow approach. So well done to all on that. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else like to speak? No, so we go to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Well done, Hanif, and thank you to all the officers for all your hard work. Okay, we go on to agenda item 4, which is my paper. I'll ask Councillor Lilybath to second it if she so wishes. So we go to page 36. So it's a joint paper, but I'm leading on it. So I'm delighted that we're now putting proposals forward to support our care leavers with appropriate housing in the borough. I think that's something that we've always wanted to do. It's one of the biggest challenges for people who are leaving care, young people, is to find a suitable home, or a house or a flat or an apartment or studio flat, whatever it is. It's to find somewhere suitable and they can call that home, because they're very vulnerable, and having a good home, as we all know, is a bedrock of how we live and how we develop as people. So housing, as we all know, is really important. So we're going to ask our housing department to act as a housing agent on behalf of Children's Services. And you'll see in the report on pages 36 and 37, we're going to recruit staff as well to help us do that. And then we'll take the money and the properties into the HRA or the general fund, etc., etc. So I'm very happy to move the report. It speaks for itself, and I don't think anyone would argue that we shouldn't be doing everything we can for looked after children. And we've got, I think, how many is it at the moment, Tom? Looked after children?
Below 300, around 280, 290.
Yeah, so that figure varies anything between 300 to 400 at any particular time, certainly since I've been leader and Tom's been lead member. Okay, anyone else like to say? Tom, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I would. I mean, it is a joint paper, and clearly the majority of it lies within Steve's portfolio because it is about the accommodation. But this is about, as Steve said, some of the most vulnerable young people that we have in our borough. Not vulnerable because of anything that they've done, but vulnerable because of their circumstances and the way that they have grown up. So it is our responsibility as the corporate parents to ensure that they are getting the best start and the best out of life, as any parent would for their children. I think it's important to note that this is not the fact that we haven't been supplying accommodation for care leavers for the last 10, 20, 30 years. Of course we have, but the situation now is that there are quite an additional number of care leavers coming through. That's when they reach 18 and become care leavers. That we've had a number of young people coming into care as adolescents. We've had a number of unaccompanied asylum-seeking minors coming over, and therefore at that sort of age, 15, 16, 17, and becoming care leavers. So that cohort has increased significantly in the last couple of years. So what we're talking about here is expanding that housing supply that we have and ensuring that we're able to give the appropriate housing in the appropriate at the appropriate time for those young people, because what we don't want is people having not enough support, but we also don't want them having too much support where they don't need it. And that's a really important balance to get, because, you know, like any young person at 18, 19 and 20, yes, you want some help from mum or dad, in our case the corporate parent, but you don't want them hanging over you if you don't want that. So this is rebalancing some of that, making sure that we're moving some young people into where the appropriate accommodation is, freeing up some services where we have where children have more need and we can support them better, particularly when they're slightly younger as care leavers, and just give better supply over the next 2 or 3 years where there is this larger cohort. You know, another very exciting, certainly not as wide-ranging as Hanif's first report, but equally as important for us to deliver.
Thanks very much, Tom. Anyone else want to say anything? Hanif?
Yeah, I'll just echo what Tom said, and also we just recognise the fact that we're parents at the end of the day, aren't we, for these children? And we don't never stop being parents. So I think this is a brilliant way forward. Thank you.
I'd just like to second the report and just to say a few comments that, of course, is as corporate parents, it's really important that we make sure that we do offer a range of housing options for care leavers. And I'm particularly pleased to say that housing and children's services are working together, which is excellent. But also we are hopefully potentially being able to provide some home ownership opportunities for care leavers as well. So I think there's some excellent options here. And looking forward, it's important that we improve the care pathway in terms of housing options for care leavers, because those that will come into the system will have better options. And we don't know, with the COVID and pandemic, we may well see more family breakdowns and children coming into care. So it's important that we do this sort of early and now. So yeah, happy to second the report, and thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Lily. Okay, move to the vote. Those all in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll now go to agenda item 5, the budget outturn report. Councillor Rajawat.
Thank you very much, Leader. It's good to be back. It's nice to be back in House of House. I've missed it. So happy to move the budget outturn report. We know, and we've spoken at length previously about the decade plus of austerity that we've gone through, and we've always shown that we've been able to make very difficult decisions without losing sight of our residents, and to a certain degree that's always borne fruit. And this report kind of highlights the management of our finances. We had to make some very difficult decisions at the beginning of this administration, as we always do, but we face those challenges head on, and you're seeing the results of that within this report. Whilst it is positive and I'm happy with the outcome, I do still worry a little bit, because we don't know, and I've always said that the impact of COVID will be felt slightly more long term. In the longer term, we don't know what the end of furlough will look like, and some of the changes that the government put in response to COVID coming to an end. So whilst we've shown that we are prudent in our approach to finances, and actually we're willing to have the difficult conversations with our directors, cabinet colleagues need to continue scanning the horizon so that we can cushion the impact into the long term going forward. But that having been said, where there is success, we need to acknowledge it. Where we are doing things correctly, we need to innovate and carry on innovating. And with that, I move the report. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks, Shan. So I'm happy to second report, but I'll say a couple of words now, if that's okay with everyone. So I just want to thank Councillor Rajawat and the team, Clive and the team, for an excellent report, but also an excellent report in the circumstances which have been extremely challenging during the last 14 months of COVID. It's been very difficult for everyone. We are a prudent council. We have a track record of being a prudent council. We only raise council tax because we have to, not because we can, and we will stick to that mantra. We do provide for the most vulnerable and the most needy in the community, and we'll stick to that. But it's because of our sound financial management that we're in this position today. So a real heartfelt thank you to Shantanu and the team, and to all of you for managing your portfolio budgets in extremely difficult circumstances. So thanks very much. And I'll second report. Anyone else like to speak? Tom.
You're going to hate me in a minute, Steve, for keep speaking. I want to sound like a broken record, though, on this, and say the thing that I've been saying for the past couple of years, which is on the dedicated schools grant, and particularly the high needs funding. The fact that the government continue not to recognise the issue that almost all councils are in, I believe, right across the country, with us being able to hold a deficit reserve, is quite frankly, in that particular area, I should emphasise, is quite frankly ridiculous. And the fact that we've got to find ways of earmarking reserves to support this, if that needs to be written off in the future, is also ridiculous. And that they are refusing to recognise this by not dealing with the problem at source, and that is a lack of funding to schools in its entirety. There's been a lot said recently, I'm going to go on a little bit, there's been a lot said recently about the catch-up funding, which I think is an important element to this because of coronavirus. But the fact is, schools have been underfunded for the best part of a decade, that in real terms they have lost money. And I think it's just unbelievable that the government continue to play this line that the schools have got more money than they ever had before, which obviously is factually true because of inflation and pupil numbers, but isn't true in the reality. That's not true when I go and speak to head teachers. It's not true when I speak to parents. It's certainly not true when I speak to children and what they are getting compared to what children 10, 12, 15 years ago under Labour governments used to get. I don't think I've ever said it in these terms before, but I think it needs to be said, and it needs to be continually said. And I'm sorry to hijack slightly this report, Shantanu, but I'm going to say it in every opportunity I can, because it's important and because it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed urgently. On the rest of the report, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, we'll move to the vote then if someone else wants to speak. Okay, all those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. We're now going to move on to agenda item 6, which is a Thriving Communities Fund, and that's Councillor Catherine Dunn. Catherine.
So, sorry, to those watching, I don't have a paper agenda. I have this, which is currently updating itself, all the updates since last March, I think, because it's come home to the mothership. So just bear with me a sec. To remind myself of the wonderful paper, that is the Thriving Communities Fund. So whilst I'm finding it, I'll just remind people who are watching and remind Cabinet members that we launched we were about to launch the Thriving Communities Fund last year. 85. I just said 105 on the front. Okay, thank you. So we launched it last year to a reasonable kind of fanfare, and it was very popular. We had lots of applications, and then COVID came along and kind of put a stop to a lot of people's plans. A lot of the groups that had applied for funding were no longer in a position to be able to deliver the particular activities that they'd applied for, and so we had a rethink. And we launched it as the Hounslow Response Fund in response to the COVID-19 emergency. And again, this was very popular and successful. The difference was that this was targeted at particular groups, at particular sections of the community, not with restrictions. I mean, anyone could apply, but in terms of the activities that we were targeting this at, was to help those particular sections of the community that had suffered most under coronavirus. So there was a kind of emergency phase, which involved things like getting food out to people in addition to the council's efforts, keeping in touch with people who were isolating and maybe needed help getting to the shops, or just a friend, a friendly voice to phone up and say, hello, how are you doing? And then as we moved on, that we started funding those kind of rebuilding activities that helped people actually start to be able to put some of the pieces of lives back together again, and build those community links that actually we'd seen were there and were really strong during the emergency phase of the pandemic, and it was something that we recognised and didn't want to lose. So it's funded some fantastic projects, and I think there is an appendix to this report. Yes, there's an impact summary on page 92, or it could be a different page depending on where you're looking at it, but it's the colourful bit, and I would really recommend reading through some of those examples and case studies of what we did and with that money, or not what we did, but what the community did with that money. And there's some really fantastic examples there. So what we want to do now is obviously to continue to build on that. And we are relaunching Thriving Communities Fund with a few differences. So this was launched officially on the 14th of May, and from what I understand, there are lots of applications coming in. There are We found that the way that it was administered and approved and so on over the last year has worked. So the recommendation here is to continue this approach. So that's recommendation 4 for Cabinet Comrades. And then finally, there's a small section, an additional grant that we are establishing called the Your Neighbourhood Grant. This will be a member-led grant to enable councillors who know their wards very well and who can bring something to be able to identify small projects, groups who maybe wouldn't be confident applying for awards on their own. So this is a real way for all of our councillors who have been very active throughout the pandemic to continue to be being active in their communities and putting forward suggestions and getting people to put forward their suggestions for how they can bid for funds to make improvements in their area. So I will stop there, but I recommend the report.
Thanks very much, Catherine. I'm happy to second the report with reserve my right to speak. Anyone else like to say anything? No? Oh, Hanif?
Yeah. First of all, I welcome the report, and I think it's a fantastic, brilliant way forward in light of what we're coming out of from a pandemic. It really shows that the team has listened to our residents, they've understood the challenges they've been through, and they've also hit the nail on the head, especially with this Your Neighbourhood grant. I think that allows us to be very strategic and for us as ward councillors to be able to directly help our residents in situations that we know best. And it's always better to listen to the experts, and it's very clear that our officers are the experts, led by Catherine, for the work that they've been able to do. And also this just complements us as ward councillors to be able to take that forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, no one else will move to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. We move on to agenda item 7, which is community solutions, and that's Councillor Dunn and Councillor Bath. Who would like to go first? Oh, I'll make a decision. Lily, you go first because Catherine can draw her breath.
Thank you. So basically, in this report, we're asking to note the impact of the community hub and the approach that we will now be taking following what we've learned from the community hub. As you all know, obviously the community hub got together very quickly to enable us to respond to the needs of the local community as a result of pandemic. And I know we've said this here before a number of times, but a huge amount of thank you to everybody who got together very quickly to provide an amazing service to our residents, in those that were in need. And one of the things that we have done continually is to learn from some of the challenges and some of the problems that we were faced with in terms of people approaching us for help. And what this report and this sort of approach is really about ensuring that we still respond to people, we still help people with whatever their issues are, but it's an approach which allows us to sort of have an individualistic approach and more of a preventative and more of a responsive focus on those that approach us for help. I mean, it's important that we learn from the hub and transform our services as a result. But for me, one of the really great things that will come out of it is that we know that we've got a lot of challenges in Hounslow in terms of some, furlough, people on universal credit, unemployment, etc. And this will allow us to target some of the areas, particularly the deprived areas in certain wards, that will need a particular solution in terms of the help that they need. I think one of the other things that having the hub showed us very early on is that there were a lot of people out there who have needs but don't are not exactly entitled to any statutory services from the council. So it's important that we still are able to support people with need, and also to prevent their needs from escalating. So it's a very collaborative and very transformational approach forward, and it is an example of the work that Hanif is doing in terms of our One Hounslow approach, and this is a direct example of One Hounslow working together to make sure that we get some good solutions for our communities. So I'll leave it there and pass on to Catherine.
Thanks, Lily. So, yeah, sorry. Oh, started doing something. So, I mean, Lily's covered it really. The community hub, as we said, was set up during the pandemic, and this is its evolution into something slightly different, into community solutions. I think Lily mentioned earlier that this is something that has come about as a result of the One Hounslow approach, and it does really embody it, because it's saying, you know, it's not about people having to come to one particular bit of the council for something and another bit of the council for something else. We want to be there for people, not coming into Hounslow House necessarily, but, you know, council officers, people who are able to help, being out there in the community where people are, and able to assist, to signpost, and to deal with issues, whatever the issue is. And in some cases that will require more complex intervention and referring on. Sometimes maybe something that can be dealt with pretty quickly. So it's still being developed. It's still we're still learning, as Lily said. But it's really how we should be doing things from now on. And I suppose one of the positive sides of the pandemic, if you can think of things in that way, is the way it has pushed us, I suppose, into looking at different ways of doing things. And this one is definitely one of them. So yes, I guess I'm seconding it, aren't I?
You can do. Yeah.
There we go.
Thanks, Catherine. Councillor Gorwell.
Thank you, Leader. Excellent report. All I want to say is my appreciation to the customer service staff and IT staff for setting up a community hub in a record time and supporting it all the way. And I'm sure we will carry on supporting and delivering better outcomes for our residents. Thank you.
All right, all the hands on my left. So I'll take Councillor Lambert and then Councillor Atherton.
Thanks, Leader. I just wanted to say, as a trustee of the Hounslow Community Food Box, we've been sort of heavily engaged with, first of all, the community hub and with the community solution that's coming out now. And as a trustee, I'm not sort of involved so much in the day-to-day, but the people who are say that it's been really smooth, and the way that they work together with the community solutions unit is very positive, and that means that as a voluntary sector organisation, they can deliver to their clients, customers, residents in a very effective way, and feel like the council is working with us, with them. So that's a real. That is a real improvement on how it was before the pandemic. So well done to everybody involved. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Lambert. Councillor Atherton.
Thank you. Yeah, I also echo what people have said. I'm hugely proud of the work that the Community Hub did over the pandemic. Got lots and lots of fantastic feedback. I'm really glad that we're really sort of having a new focus around collaboration, early intervention and prevention. And I think we've really sort of adopted the sort of every contact counts. And for the residents that I oversee as lead member for adult social care, just to put some context, this is we might have situations where somebody's going into a home, a maintenance worker, but they recognise that there's a person that's got lots of trip hazards in their home. Then they can, through the community solutions, they can contact the team who deals with falls and say, you know, are you aware of this person who could potentially be vulnerable? So that's how we really show that we're working together. We're making sure that those contacts really do count, and we're working closer with the community as well. So I'm delighted that we're moving forward. All the great things that we've learned from the community hub, we're continuing with. So I welcome this report.
Hanif.
Thank you very much, Leader. Yeah, looking at, I mean, I don't want to upset any of my colleagues, but this is probably one of the best worded report titles that I've ever liked, community solutions. I wish all of them were as exciting and as fantastic as this, and that also reflects on the people who have been involved with this as well. And it sings my tune as well, because this directly talks to one of the pillars of the One Hounslow in the placemaking and the community. And actually its overarching ambition for the One Hounslow is enabling and empowering people to have strong connections with each other and the place where they live, to support happier, healthier communities. And I can't reiterate how that falls directly into the work of the hub and how well it did and how well it performed. So this report gets my thumbs up 100%. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Hanif. Anyone else? Right, so we move to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And now we move on to agenda item 8, which is Treasury Management.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Rajawat, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Leader. If you will indulge me for just a second, I forgot in the introduction to my last piece to welcome our new AD for Governance, Rachel McCoy, to the council. So very warm welcome to her as well. I completely forgot at the beginning, so sorry for that. I'm sure we'll be working closely with her. So this is the Treasury Management Annual Report, which we're required to lay before Cabinet by SITFA. You'll note within the report that our net debt position has gone down because we're using internal resources rather than borrowing externally. That may well change as per our plans laid down in the budget in the MTFS last year, but that's continuously under review. This is a good news story, and actually, again, if you'll indulge me, Leader, I'll weave into this a big thank you and a tribute to Lorelei Watson, who is retiring from the council, or has retired from the council after 27 years of service. And Lorelei was really ingrained within the Hounslow story. She had knowledge that far exceeded her short height, and there wasn't anything that she didn't know, and I knew Clive would like that. So we spoke earlier in the earlier report about prudence, and for me, I think it's fair to say that our ability to be prudent is thanks to Lorelei's vision and leadership of Treasury management, and also to the pension fund as well, under her leadership and various chairs over the years. The pension fund has reached record values and continues to benefit both staff and pensioners. So in moving the report, I would like to ask Cabinet to join me in wishing Lorelei well in her retirement. Whoever takes her place has big shoes to fill, despite her height, and we wish her well. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks very much. Happy to second the report, and also I'm sure everyone at Cabinet would endorse our best wishes to Lorelei to enjoy a happy and successful retirement. She's worked very hard for us, one of the unsung heroes. But again, I think another example of a report that's prudent. It talks about, sometimes I criticise Councillor Rajawat and the Finance Director for being too prudent and holding on to those purse strings too tightly. But I'm glad they do, and I'm glad they push back when I want to spend some money, because you can't spend money you haven't got. We haven't got a money tree like the government has, apparently. Well, I know we haven't. They've obviously got one. And the chickens will come home to roost at some point. So I'm delighted that we're in a strong financial position And it's because of the work of officers like Lorelei, Clive, and the rest of the finance team, and of course the lead member, that we're in that very good and sound position. So very happy to second report. Anyone else want to say anything, or should we go to the vote? Looks like we're going to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. Now we're going to move on to quarterly report. It's agenda item 9, Councillor Guy Lambert.
Thank you, Leader. So in this case, we're just asking the Cabinet to note the report. It's the fourth quarter report for the Lambton companies. You will see that it's in a new format, which I think is very easy to read, is professional and very comprehensive. It has a news section, and some of the news is slightly out of date because the new road triangle development was approved by planning on Thursday. And I'm delighted that we'll be breaking ground this year to start developing that. And also to say that about 50% of it will be council flats, and about half of what's left, another 46 flats, will be truly affordable. They'll be at what we call local housing allowance rates, so they'll be affordable for people who live on benefits. So that's excellent, and we should make a little bit of money for the council out of the private rental that's left. The other elements of Lambton, first of all, leisure. Obviously, leisure's come in. We've taken all the staff in. They've moved on to the London Living Wage where they weren't on it before. The leisure centres have all opened to not fully, but to a large extent. The feedback that we've had has been very positive. Throughout the period of the pandemic, all of our community services have been delivering without any deterioration in the level of service, so that the percentage of bins emptied is still well up in the 99.9% bracket, and the state of our parks is very good. I'd also point to you that the report makes quite a thing about making a social impact. The Lambton companies have been set up partly to deliver, to be a different way of delivering services for the council, and a more economical way with some private sector features that mean that they can move more speedily and efficiently. But also, it's very important that to the companies and to all who sail in them, that they deliver a positive social impact. And that there's a lot of programs now beginning to come out which will do that, from community gardens to helping with the Brentford Scout Hut to all sorts of things like that. It all seems very positive. The financial results last year for most of Lambton companies were positive. Koala was badly hit by the pandemic and the fact that they couldn't really do anything and had to furlough a number of staff. And Lambton Leisure obviously couldn't be open for most of the year, even after the transfer. But the fundamentals are very good, and we expect to see decent financial performance this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Guy. Very happy to second the report. I think we shouldn't forget where we came from. Back in 2010, and we set up the company under Jagdish Sharma, and I think it had £250,000 in it. Is that right, Clive? He's nodding. That's, if you can't see him, it's the finance director's agreeing with me. And we've gone a long way. I'm absolutely delighted that we brought all of those privatised services back in, with one or two more to go, but we'll crack that. And it's made a real difference for our residents, and it's made a real difference for our staff. I had the pleasure of visiting Isworth Leisure Centre a couple of weeks ago. Staff were very happy. I spoke to them without their managers present. I even went in the gym. I didn't use it. I looked at it, and well, you could see I didn't use the gym. And I spoke to a couple of the users there, and one spotted me even with my mask on and said, "You're Steve Curran, the leader of the council." And I thought, here we go. But he was very complimentary, and he said there had been a transformation of the services from cleanliness to the equipment being maintained and the staff being really enthusiastic. So there has been a sea change. So thanks to Samia Chowdhury and the team in the leisure services have also made that happen. But also, I think last week when I heard the result of the planning committee for the New Road Triangle and the fantastic result for us to be able to build more council homes, you know, as a Labour councillor, as a Labour administration, we're absolutely determined to build more council homes for local people at local rent. And Feltham New Road Triangle is a fantastic example of that, working with our development company. So that was very good news. But the report is good news. You know, we've had some difficulties because of the pandemic, but we'll get over those and we'll be stronger for it. And Guy mentioned we've got good weather the last couple of days, but if you remember in last May and June, it was scorching. And our refuse collectors and our parks teams were out there every single day dealing with all of the problems that the pandemic caused our residents and businesses. They were out there doing the right thing, not taking days off, not being on furlough, the majority of them. So they did a real sterling job on behalf of the council and our company. So we shouldn't forget that. So it's a great report. It's great to see progress. And for members of the public watching, the companies, they're not there to make a profit, they're meant to make a surplus. No one around this table gets a dividend from the share, the single share. All of the money that we make the surplus goes back into the council to help us with our budgets, which are being cut year on year by the government. So that's why we do this. So more than happy to second the report. Anyone else wants to say anything? Councillor Samia Chowdhury.
Thank you, Steve. Just a quick one on Lambton Leisure. I'll be really honest, I was really glad when a company was set up and we started taking over and all the work was happening. From wherever I was like hearing so many complaints on emails, on the phone calls about the leisure centres and things happening, public halls. It's been extremely good. Hats off to staff and all the team, amount of work they have done to bring that in-house. They've done an amazing job. But from like seeing the emails, or this is not done and showers are leaking and this is happening. If you see page 144, you've got really 2 good comments on there. Wonderful experience and friendly and helpful staff. And at the same time, great seeing pool and gym, very reasonable priced membership. And we are increasing in the membership as well. All the residents who I have spoken to in last 6 weeks, they're all happy and using the gym, trying to get the membership. And I think that they're doing the fantastic work Lambton Leisure is. But at the same point, coming back to what you have said earlier on about Green Space 360, our parks team from day one of the pandemic have worked extremely hard. They've, from locking the parks or putting the fences up, they've done a great job. And I would just like to thank them one more time, and I think do every performance report the work they do, and it's been amazing to see them out regardless of being not well or anything like that. I think we've had a great support from the whole team. Thank you.
Thanks very much. If no one wants to go to the vote, all those in favour, it's to note. Thank you very much, everyone. That's unanimous. We're coming to the end of the business now. I've had no referrals from any other council committees. I've got no urgent any other business. And the date of the next meeting is the 20th of July at 7 p.m. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Cabinet members. Thank you, officers, for your support. And thank you, anyone who's been watching this podcast. Is it a podcast? Webcast. I'll get it right one day. Okay, so thanks very much, everyone, and good night.